today's topic, infections in tattoos. Whether it's your first or fifth or 50th or whatever it is, there's always a chance that your tattoos will get infected. So why does a tattoo get infected? A tattoo is an open wound, and an open wound can get infected when it gets in contact with bacteria, viruses, dust, pretty much anything that isn't good for your skin or an open wound. So when can and when will a tattoo get infected? If your tattoo gets infected, it's gonna happen either while it's being done, during the tattoo process, under the needle of your artist, or when you leave and when you're home or wherever you are with your new tattoo, but during the healing process. The tattoo can get infected during the process, say you personally, or the artist, or the shop, the studio has a too low level of hygiene. It can be through cross-contaminating with processed products, inks, gloves, with all kind of stuff that is caused by bad hygiene in the studio and by the artist. It can be if the artist is using non-sterile equipment. I would say the chances of that happening are kind of low because most artists nowadays, they use disposable equipment, one usage, out. It can be yourself that causes the infection throughout the process by touching your tattoo, by getting too close to it, going to the restroom. You should of course take your breaks, lunch breaks, whatever. I personally recommend that you get your tattoo covered with not the tattoo film right now, but with some clear film before you take a break, before you go to the restroom, before you go sit down, have some lunch or whatever you do, because it does lower the chances of cross-contamination to happen during your break. An infection can also happen when you are healing your tattoo, when you are in charge of the process yourself, and that can be by bad hygiene at home, using a filthy, not clean towel, applying the wrong product, sleeping in dirty bed sheets. It can be caused by so many things. If you want to avoid that, I recommend clicking this video where we have a complete guide on how to heal your tattoo. But it can basically be your own fault, or the artist's fault, or a combined thing. So therefore, make sure that you have a very high level of hygiene in the shop, also before you go to the shop, but also when you make it home and for the first few weeks when you are healing your new tattoo. If the worst thing happens and your tattoo gets infected, there will be some signs to look for. So what are the signs to look for if you want to figure out if your tattoo is infected? I will say if your tattoo keeps on hurting and the pain is bad, if the area around your tattoo is getting red and sore and sensitive, if your tattoo starts to burn, feel like it's burning like a local fever or a local fire in your skin, it can be a sign of an infection. If your tattoo starts leaking like pus, it's called, like yellow, white-ish, not blood, but something else, it can most likely be because of an infection. If your skin is raised, it can also be because of an infection. Basically, if you feel pain that doesn't really feel like when you got the tattoo or after you got your tattoo, but feels like a new pain, it can be an infection, and it's something you should look out for. If you have just a little bit of fear that your tattoo is infected, I would always recommend that you ask your artist. If he or she isn't accessible, jump straight into getting in touch with a doctor. I would always get in touch with a doctor though, but an artist would most likely be able to say, this looks infected or this looks perfectly fine, if you send him or her a picture of your tattoo and the status it's in right now. If it's infected, make sure that you get in touch with a doctor right away. The sooner the better. They will most likely prescribe you some antibiotics, either as a pill or as a cream you use locally. It's very important that you stop moisturizing the tattoo, and it's very important that you keep your tattoos clean. Depending on the level of infection you have in your tattoo, ask the doctor for his or her advice and make sure that you follow them throughoutly, because this is very, very important. Once the doctor has given you the medication, the antibiotics, you should start feeling a relief in pain, and you should start seeing that your tattoo is getting to a better state within just a couple of days. If it doesn't, remember to get back to your doctor and say, this is bad, this is not going in the right direction. So what can happen if your tattoo gets infected? What will happen for your tattoo now and long term? Now it's gonna hurt, it's gonna be an annoying process. You have to talk to the doctor and all of what I just went through. It's not nice, but it's gonna be okay. However, long term, your tattoo have chances of needing touch-up. You can get blowouts in lines. That means lines are breaking. Basically, it looks like it's fragmented on your skin. So a thin line can be bolder at some point. A line can also be broken at some point where you need to touch it up. Colors can fade or disappear completely. There are chances that you will get a scar and that your tattoo will be, the skin will be raised in some areas. However, most of the things are fixable, but if you get a very bad infection, there are chances that you can't fix your tattoo. That's again why, and I'm just underlining it once more, make sure that you take good care of it during the healing process and that you find an artist that has a very high standard and a very high level of hygiene. As I started out saying in this video, this is not to scare you away of getting a tattoo. I tried having several, I'm tempted to say, or multiple infections in my tattoos. I once got a tattoo on my shoulder in Vietnam. Nothing bad about Vietnam. I love the place. I lived there for 6 months. But I got a tattoo by an artist and I don't think he was a full-time tattoo artist. And I don't think he had a license or anything. I think he just had this loft, a machine, some ink, some needles, and that's where I went. I was young, I was stupid, I didn't do any research, and I got this not really nice tattoo. I got a tattoo, it was cheap, but I also got the biggest infection one can ever imagine. And I got sick, I had to stay in bed, I had to go to the pharmacy and a doctor, and I got both pills and a cream to put on my infected wound that were all black scalp-ish. It looked really bad and it felt so bad and it was super painful. So I'm not doing that again. I also once got an infection in a tattoo on my lower arm, my light bulb, because I went straight into playing soccer after I got my tattoo. And for some reason I fell like I've never played soccer before because I fell on my arm like this. It shouldn't be doable, but I did it because that was the only thing that weren't supposed to happen. And I ripped up my new tattoo that were just healing, and that also caused an infection. Now, whenever I go to a tattoo studio or I find an artist, I make sure that I look up what they do. I look up their healed work. I look up recommendations, reviews, and I make sure that they are licensed and registered in the right databases. For example, here in Denmark, we have a database of registered arts, and in the US, you also need a license in the city and state that you are working in as a tattoo artist. Make sure that your own personal hygiene is very high and that you're clean when you make it to the shop. Make sure that you take good care of your hygiene when you are in the shop. Make sure that, as said before, you have the right artist to do the job. Make sure that whenever you leave and go home, that you do take your time and that you do take your measurements in terms of keeping your tattoo clean and keeping it as sterile as possible. So make sure that you don't sleep with dirty laundry. Make sure that you don't pet your dog with your new tattoo. Make sure that you keep it clean and protect it for the first couple of weeks when it is an open wound that needs the right treatment. A tattoo is an open wound. An open wound has higher chances of getting infected than a non-open wound. So make sure that you keep it clean, that you take care of it, and that you treat it like an open wound, and an open wound that you just paid for. That's it. If you have any questions, leave them below. Feel free to share this with your friends. If you're new to the channel, remember to subscribe, and then see you next time. Adios, amigos.